Chair Ken Martin. Chairman, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start right there and talk about the idea of a post-mortem. What do you think needs to happen in order to conduct that post-mortem, and what are the questions that you want answered?
Well, first off, I don't like to call it a post-mortem because the Democratic Party's not dead. We're still alive. We're still kicking, right? But I do believe we need a post-election review after every election. And frankly, I was a little disappointed we didn't have one after the 2020 election. You see, there's a tendency when you win elections, everyone thinks they're a genius, right? And when you lose elections, everything was wrong. And, you know, neither one of those are completely true. Every election cycle, we do some things well that we should continue to do, and every election we do things that we shouldn't continue to do, and we need to learn those lessons the right way. We know we lost ground with Latino men, we know we lost ground with working class households, with white women, etc. What we don't know yet, and we won't know for some time until we do that review and we get our hands on all the data, is the how and why we lost ground.
Do you have a sense, though, preliminarily, of what were some of the problems that you identified in watching this all play out? I
mean, I think there were some real macro issues that we were dealing with. One, of course, the headwinds in this election never really changed. From the right track, wrong track numbers from the beginning when Biden announced all the way through were the same, meaning this was a change electorate, and people were facing a lot of economic anxiety and pain, and they were going to take it out on the party in power. And so that was true all the way through the election. The second thing, which surprised me, was last spring, and this should have been the canary in the coal mine, there was research that showed for the first time in modern history, the perceptions of the two political parties has actually changed. The majority of Americans now believe that the Republican Party best represents the interests of the working class and the poor, and the Democratic Party is the party of the wealthy and the elites. And sure enough, the only two groups that we overperformed with were wealthy households and college-educated voters, just to prove the point. So we have a lot of work to do because our brand, obviously, is not where it needs to be.
Do you think that's a problem of messaging or the candidates?
Well, I will say it's definitely a branding problem. The perceptions of our party are completely upside down. And it's a messaging problem. It's not a message problem, by the way, because if you look at states like Missouri, where they passed a minimum wage increase, they passed a paid family leave, they passed abortion protections, all by wide margins, those same voters went down ballot and voted for Trump and the Republicans. So the policies we champion as a Democratic Party are very popular around this country, and they're passing in wide measure, but they're not connecting those policies back to our party and candidates. That's a messaging problem, not a message problem.
Based on what you've assessed so far, and again, I know that it's still the very beginning of really looking into what some of these metrics and issues look like, how would you fix this problem?
Well, first off, we need to, again, get our hands on all the data, make sure we know exactly how and why this happened, and then start being prescriptive in terms of the solution. But the other piece we need to do is bring all of our stakeholders together, right? Bring them around to the table. There should be no sacred cows, right? I think there's a perverse profit incentive in the business of politics that drives so much of our ad spend to broadcast TV, as an example. One of the lessons we've learned is that the Republicans did a masterful job over the last 4 years of just beating the heck out of Democrats, our party brand, and Joe Biden in non-traditional news places or information spaces. We have to do a better job of getting our message out and competing in those spaces, and we need to make sure that we're doing it on our terms, defining ourselves before they define us. And that's one clear lesson from this election that is not a Kamala Harris problem. I think what we asked Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to do in 107 days, they did everything we asked them to do. Frankly, we asked them to do the improbable, going up against some very significant headwinds. There's more systemic challenges that we face as a Democratic Party that we have to dig into.
Given what you're saying, the headwinds, the improbability of having such a short campaign and coming back and winning the person who you're running against, do you think President Biden should have dropped out sooner and given her a longer runway?
Well, look, it's an academic exercise. It doesn't matter what I think at this point. We can't change the past. So what I'm looking for is information that can help us inform the future and help us actually change what's broken in our party so we can actually win again. There's lots of people in Washington, by the way, that want to win the argument. The only thing I want to do is win elections. That's what's important to me, because at the end of the day, our party has to start winning again so we can improve people's lives.
A lot of work ahead of you. you.
Yes.
Why do you want to be the person at the top of the ticket?
Well, it's a big job for sure. There's no doubt about it. But I'm excited about the opportunity to help bring a little bit of what we've done in Minnesota. Arguably, the Minnesota DFL, which I've led the last 14 years, is one of the strongest state parties in the nation. I'm 25-0 on winning statewide races. We've had 2 trifectas, which have delivered some of the most progressive legislation for Minnesotans. And I think we can scale that up here with the DNC and make sure that our party is actually organizing everywhere with all 57 of our state parties and contesting races up and down the ballot.
Very quickly, under the Biden administration, they changed which state votes first. It's now South Carolina. Do you want to see that stay that way, or do you want it to go back to
Well, it's not up to
Iowa,
me.
New Hampshire?
Yeah, it's not up to me to make that decision.
But what would you like
unilaterally.
to see?
What I would like to see is a robust conversation within our party about what makes sense to make sure that we actually have a rigorous, efficient, and fair process that battle tests our nominees so we can win.
So you're open to changing it back?
I'm open to whatever our party thinks is best for us to win.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Ken Martin, great conversation. Great to have you here in studio.